How's it going, everyone? And as always, welcome back to Continues to Tick. So friends, how important is the start? Or is it just how we finish that matters? In many areas it does mostly matter. How we tend to finish, that is important. Cooking, for example, on how you can save a dish. Schoolwork, for example, as when you graduate, you receive your diploma regardless of any failed papers. But in the financial world, I'd say, it's critically very important how you start. How you start your foundation versus how you finish it towards the end. As in the financial sphere, the more solid the foundation, the higher an elevation you can build on top and then climb. As for how you do start, will really make an impact on how far you finish and when. I mean, if you're in the workforce at all, I'm sure you've heard it before, many times over, from your older colleagues. Gotta get ready for retirement. Oh, I can't wait until I'm able to retire. I'm not quite ready to retire yet. I can't stop working quite yet as I can't afford it. Just a few more years, just a few more years, just a few more years. And this mindset often leads to cramming what would be multiple years or even decades of work, investing, and frugality into a few years at the end of a career. Or worse yet, lead into an overall inability to retire. This is a reality of a common situation many of us face now or will face then. So what can we do different, friends? How can we prevent this? And the answer is, be systematically cautious. Be mindful that we will all age. So we need to start thinking of this all today, when we don't want to, when we say we don't need to, but when we most can. The best time to prevent this poor outcome starts many decades before it actually happens, in early age, preferably in our 20s, but you can also in your 30s, and then of course in your 40s. But with each passing decade, it only becomes that more stressful and that much harder. My point is, friends, knowing how important the start is for our financial floor and our financial ceiling has made me make rather systematic steps in my 20s so far. Things that so far in the journey, at the age of 26 and soon to be 27, I notice already have benefited me greatly. Many that my future self will thank me one day for. So I'd like to share these steps, ultimately with you, the ones I have made, and part of the plan that I built in my 20s that has really helped me, and that I believe will continue to help others, really set a solid financial foundation, or that financial floor. But I was able to recognize 5 helpful steps, just 5 things to follow, and to consider when building out that financial floor we need to think about, to truly supercharge that financial future and build that base that I know we all desire. If I can work towards it and hopefully do it one day, you can too. Number 1, of most importance, find and build a career or stable job. What is a life without income? Well, I can probably describe it. Likely full of problems, stressful, unsatisfying, disorienting, just to name a few. Step 1 is to find a solid stream of income, likely from a career. And it really is of your choice, but you need one. And specifically, it has to be in something you can build within, build upon. You can be self-employed even and do this. Or you can do this for others in the form of working for an organization or large company. It's your choice, truly. But you need a place where you can advance. And as we get to number 3 eventually, you'll see what I mean. But I'll use myself as an example throughout all of these steps, as I'm also practicing them. For me, I studied and became a registered nurse. I knew nursing was a very smart choice. They get paid very well, have so many places and areas to work from, and there will always be sickness, so no lack of work there. And I can travel with it. I can find this job almost anywhere I move to, if I was to do so. So things I just kept in mind. And just to share further, I still remain working full time. For those curious, I actually work as a prison nurse, of all places. I enjoy it. It's pretty cool and unconventional, maybe a bit on the edgy side. But my favorite thing about it actually is it's a state job. So I'm building up a pension in this day and age of pension rarities. Number 2. So now that we have the stable job or the career we need, we have the money coming in, and we can depend on a certain amount of anticipated income each and every month. This really helps us with what we can do next, which is to build a long-term investing strategy and do it consistently. I made this number 2 because you can't consistently do this without step 1. Some people try to do both at the same time, but that only makes it harder on ourselves. I say focus on one at a time. For me, I chose dividend investing, but there are many other forms, some being growth investing, or of course real estate investing. It's really your choice. You can always do all 3 in any which variations you'd like. However, personally, I'm a believer that in order to do something well, you need to focus on it first and do it consistently. So I primarily chose dividend investing for this purpose, and that is my base. However, I hope to eventually also create a real estate portfolio one day, in addition to this, when the money allows or my income increases. I also do recognize though, that this is just a very superficial explanation of this step, just telling you to go choose one. But keep in mind, there are so many great videos on YouTube that may help you actually make that decision and find the best investing strategy for you. At the end of the day, I'm a big advocate for dividend investing, so my opinion will always sway in that direction. But don't let me sway you from your decision. There are so many trails leading to the top of the mountain. Number 3. So now we've come a bit of a way. We have the money coming in, we have systematically been investing into our investing method of choice, and we are rocking and rolling. So what now? Do we stop and cruise in our 20s? We're good now, right? No. This is the part where we continue to get ahead, we grow, and not waste time. Step 3 is what I had mentioned in step 1 briefly, which is to now find ways to increase your income. Well, you'll soon find out, which is what I soon found out after being in the workforce for a while, is that the limit of your growth will typically depend on the money you're able to make. It's hard to swallow, but this is a reality. If we make a low income our entire careers, we will always be capped at a lower potential. This doesn't necessarily mean to be a bad thing, but it's just a hard truth. If we make a low income and invest a low amount of money each month, it'd be unrealistic, for example, to one day expect to drive a Porsche Panamera or buy a large house in that highly exclusive neighborhood you desire. So in step 3, considering we have now found a job in step 1 or a career that we can grow within that remains stable, the next step is to start looking at ways to advance in that job and get that promotion, which will lead to a higher income, or start that side hustle or small side business, maybe working on ways to monetize your passion. You will then want to repeat this step until you get to that place you want. For me personally, I realize it's easiest to extend my job's pay scale through promotion rather than start a side business right now. But really it depends on you. Sometimes some work sites don't have much of a runway and you cap fairly quickly, so work with what you have. But starting in your 20s or early on to increase your income will put you on pace to hit even a higher financial ceiling in your life. For me, for example, nursing already provides me a great wage. It allows me to invest $500 every week into my portfolio, but I want to get an even better nursing job. So because of this, I started a master's program recently, about a third of the way through, and this will open a door for a nursing consulting position I currently have my eyes on, still for the state, but it will grant me a significantly higher income, and also the best part, I'll finally be able to work from home. So what I'm saying in this step, friends, is don't be afraid to keep growing. Don't cap yourself regardless if you dream big or not. Number 4. So number 4 is not so much a planned item in a sequence, but more so a thing to be mindful for in your 20s. And that is, don't buy a house you can't afford until your major life events settle. Stay nimble. So for this one in particular, to keep in mind is that so much can change naturally in your 20s. So much growth can happen. We go from college into the workforce to settling down, or from being in the workforce for many years, now wanting to settle down, or overall maybe just a long career in education. But with this, naturally comes possibly finding a partner, getting married, having kids, relocating for a job, moving multiple times, finding that job, changes after changes. A lot of change happens in this period of time, right? So because of that, buying a house in this decade, I believe, is best to avoid until you at least really settle into a future vision or have a great amount of clarity. So the reason you also don't want to buy a house is because there's a high chance we may not be able to afford a house in this decade comfortably with a 20% down payment and a mortgage that is manageable. At least here in California, it is rather difficult, even for me right now. It's often too easy to buy a house though, that we can't afford, which will only tie us down further into a position we may not want to be in. So the purpose of this step is a reminder to be mindful that we may naturally have an urge to buy a house in our 20s, and that's normal. But just to be careful, to really think about it in many ways before you do so. For me, for example, I still rent because life continues to change, and I expect it to continue to change a lot as I go to wrapping up my 20s. I want to remain nimble, and the best way to do this, for me at least, I realize is to not buy a house. Some people say renting is losing money. I see so many benefits to renting. I do wish to own a home one day though, but I also think owning a house is a luxury, and I'm currently still focused on other areas of my life. And again, that is just me. Remember, the only real wrong answer here is buying a house you can't afford, but that's always a wrong answer, not just in your 20s. Number 5. This again is not a sequential step, but one that may trigger a few people, but just know I mean well. And this is to make an onus to yourself to not buy your dream car in your 20s. I do see it from time to time, and I see many young people buying that really expensive car during a time it may be best to use that money to keep building instead. I'm not a proponent though to buying a junk car, and don't get me wrong, just a good car. It can even be new. There's just the difference between a nice new car and buying that sports car or even expensive luxury brand car. For me, for example, I really want a Porsche Panamera, if you haven't noticed. Sure, I can go figure out a way to go buy one right now and finance it, but that means likely not investing into my dividends and definitely eating ramen noodles every single day and also probably living in the car itself. Okay, maybe a bit of a stretch, but you know what I'm trying to get at, which is make that dream car a goal of yours to buy one day when it won't stress you out and you can just walk into that dealership with confidence and afford it and have nothing else going on change around you, except possibly moving your partner's car out of the garage because your car needs that entire garage to itself, you know? I kid. I personally, if you're curious, I personally drive a 2014 Toyota Camry right now, and I think it's a beauty. And so I hope you were able to enjoy some of these steps. We now find ourselves in my dividend portfolio, as we always do towards the end of a video. But as you can see, we currently sit at $62,512.04 in the Jesse's Cash Flow portfolio. And this is with a total return of 28.90%, which equates to a total gain of $7,704.98. And of this, for market gain alone, it's $5,874. And of earned dividends, it's $1,830. And going from the all-time view, let's go to the last week's performance, because it was actually noticeably good. As you can see here, we had a 3.22% return, which equated to a total gain of $1,944.37. And this is on top of the $500 that I did invest this past week. And now going into one of my most favorite parts, which is probably every dividend investor's favorite part, is looking at dividend payouts, that passive income. And as you can see for last week's, we did have the normal $500 funnel, just to be transparent. I don't believe I showed you it in last week's video. And we also got paid quite a bit of dividends, some from ABM, AT&T, JP Morgan Chase, and Verizon. And we also got paid by General Dynamics. But flashing forward just to this past week here, it was rather uneventful, but on August 11th, we did get paid by Apple, $2.73. And just as a little side story, I say it every time I see this payout from Apple, my very first dividend payout was from Apple, and it was of 8 pennies. And now here we are at $2.73. And then here on the very next day, on August 12th, we had the $500 deposit. It is the systematic game plan. We do that every single week. And the snowball for this past week, just to note it, it was $7.31. And so that's going to be it for this week's video. I hope you were able to find it somewhat helpful. Just 5 steps that I'm personally taking, and I could think of more, just to kind of supercharge that financial future that I hope to eventually hit or obtain one day. I really feel like it's important just from the start to start building that base for yourself. Not only are you building habits, but if you're physically doing it, you're building a floor, a solid floor for yourself as you move your way up through life, because life is going to pass regardless. Before you know it, if you're lucky, you start living decade after decade after decade. The last thing you want to do is get to the end of your career, the end of your working ability, and be scrambling for extra time, scrambling for extra overtime to make more money and funneling it, shoveling it into your portfolios. You don't want to be that far behind. So do yourself a favor. Do it now. If you start today, you'll thank yourself tomorrow. And that tomorrow will eventually be in the future. It'll be that future you. But enough with the ramble. We're getting close actually to hitting 1,000 subscribers. I just wanted to mention it here at the very end. It's really neat to see. It's crazy. I'm at a loss of words. I've been working really hard on this channel, and it makes me feel really good to make these videos, and just coming from a raw side of me. It's a big milestone for me personally. I knew it'd happen one day, but man, it's nice to see. And, it does make me a bit emotional. But the truth is, when you work that hard towards something and you're consistent, it will happen. It's inevitable. But I guess it does still surprise me even when it does. But for the majority of you who stuck to this point in this video and who continue to support me and watch these videos and follow this journey, I thank you so much. And like I always mention, we won't be stopping anytime soon. So with that being said, we've made it through 7 days. And because of that, we have a high chance, as you know, as always, making it through another 7. And let's keep at it, friends. Let's keep at it. Once we hit 1,000, let's hit 1,000 more and 1,000 more. In the portfolio, on the YouTube channel, everything. I'll see you on next week's video, and take care.